Hi, I'm Aravinda. Welcome. If you're new, I'm Aravinda, and this is Aravinda Adventures, where I am talking about chronic and invisible illness and conditions, what it's like to live with them as a 50-plus-year-old woman who wants to travel and explore and adventure, and how I go about getting up to those adventures and what kinds of things I need to do in order to be able to have the adventures given my health circumstances. I am coming back to talk a little bit more about the events that led up to the trip in October of 2024 that my partner and I took, that was just 1 month following my heart attack in September of 2024. I want to talk about why this trip was important to myself and my partner. And the first part is that neither of us had been able to travel for quite some time, even prior to the pandemic. We both had back issues that made traveling really painful and would lead us to being somewhat incapacitated on the day following travel. And in the fall of 2023, we both had back surgeries to help with those situations. So my partner turned 60 in the middle of 2024. And I was set to turn 50 in the late fall of 2024. I had been, at this point, 2 years cancer-free from thyroid cancer, and we originally wanted to go to Mexico. And we were so excited. We both really wanted this long vacation where we got to spend time just relaxing together and celebrating the good things in our life, like these decade birthdays and improved health and the ability to travel because we were physically capable of it. Travel was finally attainable. It's something that I've always wanted to do. Always wanted to do. And I never felt like I could. Between May and about mid-September, I was making sure to get my travel vaccines updated. I was making sure that I was doing things that I could to make sure my health was at its absolute optimum. As time passed from the point when we made our travel arrangements in May toward the fall, things started happening with my health that were not really easily explained. I was losing weight unexpectedly. I was having a difficult time eating, which has been a long-term issue where, because of a gastric bypass I had in 2012, I sometimes just don't eat well. And then to further complicate matters, the radiation for cancer damaged my salivary glands, which then, of course, impacted my diet significantly. I had a couple of significant periods where I fainted and I hit my head. I had other strange symptoms that just didn't make sense, and I just felt run down in general. During that same time period, I was also recovering from a broken kneecap, which was the second time this had happened. I have osteoporosis. I was out of the brace by mid-July. I was up on ladders in August, and I was scheduled to see my doctor in the third week of September of 2024 to do routine blood work and to make sure that I had all my updated prescriptions for this travel event. We're going out of country. And I went in for my labs on a Tuesday, and Wednesday at noon, my doctor called extremely concerned. I was sent to the hospital for severe neutropenia, which is where your white blood count is really low and you're at an elevated risk of infection and potentially, depending on that level of neutropenia, severe infection. I was considered at an extreme risk to the point where an infection could potentially end things for me. While I was in the hospital, I had the heart attack. It was thankfully mild, but it was deemed to be largely stress-induced, which makes sense given how my life has been. But in the month following my discharge from the hospital, I did thankfully move out of neutropenia, and all initial testing about a week prior to our planned trip came back with adequate results for me to be able to safely travel. We got to the Friday prior to our trip when we were going to leave on a Tuesday, and then the hurricane was barreling in at the Caribbean and specifically toward Cozumel. That was our last day to make a change, so we called up our travel agent and we shifted to go to Oahu, and specifically to stay in Honolulu on Waikiki. Even before we left for the trip, while I was packing and getting ready, following my very detailed packing list and preparation list, I realized just how tired I was. Not just tired, exhausted I was. I couldn't even complete the task of laying out all of the items that were to go into the suitcase before needing to take a nap. And this happened on more than one occasion while I was preparing. That is a reality of living with a chronic illness, is that doing and completing tasks is far more time consuming, consumes much more energy than it does for someone who is not ill, and requires a lot of pacing and rest. And I will say that everything during this trip was impacted by my health condition, from the packing to our travel days to what we did all day long when we were at our final destination in Oahu, and even what we were able to do from day to day and how we adjusted our plans around my wellness. In the next videos, I'll talk about how my chronic and invisible conditions have impacted every element of this Hawaii trip, from the travel days to the adventuring and even the necessary rest day. Stay tuned in and come along with me to see how I adventure despite chronic, invisible health conditions. If this content holds value, is interesting, or you learned something, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and hit the notification bell to get alerts when I post new videos about my adventures of life with chronic, invisible illness, traveling, and exploring this beautiful planet. Thanks.